Goodbye inflammation. What your metabolism does in 30 days without added sugar. Imagine waking up with less puffiness in your face, fewer midday energy crashes, and a clearer head without a new drug, without a complicated program, just by cutting the added sugar from your diet for 1 month. That's the promise we're exploring today. The practical, measurable changes that tend to show up in the first 30 days when you remove or dramatically reduce added sugar, and why those changes mostly come down to one thing: less inflammation and a steadier metabolism. First, a quick orientation. Why sugar matters. When you consume a lot of added sugars, think sodas, sweetened coffee drinks, many packaged foods, your body responds with repeated insulin spikes. Insulin's job is to move glucose into cells, but frequent spikes lead to metabolic stress. Part of the problem is fructose, a common component of table sugar and many sweeteners, which is handled primarily by the liver. High fructose intake prompts the liver to make more triglycerides and, over time, can increase liver fat. Added sugar also promotes glycation, which damages proteins like collagen, and it fuels small rises in inflammatory molecules, the biochemical signals that make tissues feel swollen, sore, or irritated. It also disturbs the balance of bacteria in your gut, which affects digestion, immunity, and even mood. So cutting added sugar is not just about calories. It changes signaling in multiple systems that together influence inflammation and metabolic health. If you want to follow a community challenge to try this for 30 days, hit subscribe now and join us. We'll walk through a realistic plan and share support along the way. Now let's go through the 10 benefits you're most likely to notice within about a month, why they happen, and what you can expect to feel or measure. 1. Better skin, less acne, and slower signs of glycation. Sugar contributes to inflammation and to glycation, a chemical process where sugar molecules attach to proteins like collagen and elastin. Over time, that can make skin less resilient and accelerate fine lines. In the short term, high sugar loads also provoke hormonal swings and inflammation that feed acne. Within 30 days of cutting added sugar, many people report fewer breakouts, less oiliness, and a visible smoother tone. You won't erase decades of sun damage in a month, but your skin can look calmer and less inflamed, and you may notice fewer new blemishes. 2. Reduced liver fat. Your liver starts to breathe easier. Fructose is processed in the liver and, in excess, is converted into fat that accumulates inside liver cells. This contributes to non-alcoholic fatty liver and to a pro-inflammatory state across your body. When you reduce added sugar, the liver is no longer receiving constant fructose loads. In roughly 2 to 4 weeks, the liver's fat production slows, and modest drops in liver fat are often seen on imaging and reflected in improved liver enzyme patterns. What you might feel: less abdominal bloating, improved energy after meals, and potentially a small drop in waist circumference over time as liver and visceral fat gradually decrease. 3. Less systemic inflammation, fewer aches, less puffiness. Added sugar fuels inflammatory cytokines and promotes oxidative stress. Think of sugar as a small but persistent ember that keeps a low-level fire burning in tissues. Take that ember away, and the flame begins to die down. Within 30 days, many people notice less joint stiffness in the morning, reduced swelling in hands or feet, and a general easing of chronic, low-level bodily noise. Blood tests that measure inflammation, like high-sensitivity CRP, often trend down in people who cut added sugar and improve other lifestyle factors too. Remember, research suggests associations between sugar intake and inflammation, and results vary between individuals. 4. Lower triglycerides, improved lipid patterns. High sugar diets, particularly those rich in added fructose, are linked to elevated triglycerides, a blood fat associated with cardiovascular risk. When you reduce added sugar, the liver makes fewer triglyceride-rich particles, and blood levels can fall noticeably in weeks. Some studies report substantial drops in triglyceride levels when people cut excess sugar, though individual responses differ. What you might see: a repeat blood test after a few weeks to months could show lower triglycerides. More practically, you'll often feel fewer sluggish, carb-heavy afternoons and steadier appetite. 5. Less bloating and water retention. Sugar and high-carbohydrate meals promote insulin spikes, which signal the body to retain sodium and water. Sugar can also feed certain gut bacteria that overproduce gas when they ferment undigested carbs. Cut the added sugar, and one of the almost immediate wins is reduced bloating, a flatter feeling in the midsection, and less puffy hands or face. Many people report feeling physically lighter within days to a couple of weeks. partly from lower water retention and partly from reduced gut fermentation. 6. Improved digestion and a more balanced microbiome. Diet shapes the gut microbiome rapidly. Diets high in added sugars tend to favor species that thrive on simple carbohydrates and can contribute to inflammation and dysbiosis. When you transition to fewer added sugars and more whole food choices, fiber, varied vegetables, and protein, you encourage a more diverse microbiome. That shift can reduce gas, normalize bowel habits, and even lower intestinal inflammation markers. You may notice improved regularity and less post-meal discomfort within a few weeks. 7. Better focus and more stable energy. Fewer crashes, more sustained attention. Rapid rises and falls in blood glucose from sugary meals create energy spikes followed by steep drops, those classic sugar crashes that leave you foggy and irritable. Over 30 days of fewer spikes, your brain starts to see steadier glucose availability and reduced inflammatory signaling that can impair cognition. Some studies suggest that diets high in added sugars are associated with worse measures of attention and memory. Conversely, many people report clearer thinking and improved afternoon focus after cutting sugar. Expect fewer cravings and less of that wired then wiped out feeling. 8. Lowered markers associated with cancer risk, framed cautiously. Chronic inflammation, excess insulin signaling, and obesity are all linked in research to higher risks for several types of cancer. Reducing added sugar can lower some of those upstream drivers, less inflammation, improved insulin sensitivity, and better body composition, which are associated with reduced risk markers over time. Within 30 days, you're unlikely to change long-term risk dramatically, but you can begin to shift the metabolic environment away from the chronic stressors that research has linked to higher risk. Think of this month as an early, high-impact nudge toward a lower-risk trajectory over years. 9. Improved mood, less irritability, and fewer depressive symptoms for some people. Diets high in added sugar have been associated in some studies with greater risk of depressive symptoms, possibly via inflammation, gut changes, and unstable energy. Cutting sugar reduces those biochemical roller coasters for many people, and they report feeling calmer, less reactive, and more emotionally steady within weeks. If you have a history of mood disorders, this is not a replacement for therapy or medication, but it is one change that can help stabilize emotional highs and lows as part of a broader plan. 10. Lower markers linked to cognitive decline, again cautiously presented. Chronic inflammation and metabolic dysfunction are linked in research to pathways involved in cognitive aging and neurodegenerative diseases. By reducing inflammation, stabilizing insulin, and improving vascular and metabolic health, you lower several of the risk markers that research associates with cognitive decline. Within 30 days, the brain's chemistry and blood flow can improve modestly. Better sleep, reduced fog, and enhanced focus are signs you might notice, but long-term cognitive resilience requires sustained habits beyond a single month. Those are the 10 benefits you can realistically aim for in the first 30 days. Each is rooted in how sugar interacts with inflammation, insulin, liver metabolism, and gut health. Now, how do you actually succeed for a month? Here's a practical 10-step toolkit to get you through the first 30 days without added sugar in a way that's sustainable and non-punishing. 1. Stop drinking your calories. Liquid sugar, sodas, fruit drinks, sweetened coffees, and teas accounts for a huge portion of added sugar in many diets and is the easiest target. Swap sugary drinks for water, sparkling water, unsweetened tea, or coffee with no added syrups. If plain water feels bland, add a slice of lemon, a sprig of mint, or a splash of unsweetened citrus. This one change alone often cuts a large chunk of daily added sugar. 2. Read labels like a detective. Sugar hides under many names: sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, maltose, dextrose, cane sugar, fruit juice concentrate, and more. Look at the total grams of added sugars per serving. Packaged foods marketed as natural or low-fat often add sugars to boost flavor. Start by targeting obvious culprits and replace them with higher protein or higher fiber options. 3. Reduce gradually if needed. If you currently have a lot of added sugar, abrupt elimination can trigger strong cravings and withdrawal-like symptoms. You don't have to go cold turkey. Start by cutting sugary drinks first, then remove obvious sweets, and finally reduce hidden sugars. Tapering can help your palate reset and make the change more sustainable. 4. Allow controlled rewards. A strict never mindset can backfire. Decide in advance what a reasonable planned treat looks like. perhaps one small dessert once a week or a carefully portioned sweet on a social occasion. The point is to avoid mindless, repeated consumption. Controlled indulgences reduce the feeling of deprivation and improve long-term adherence. 5. Plan meals to avoid impulse purchases. Hunger plus convenience is the enemy of a sugar-free month. Prep simple meals and snacks that include protein, fiber, and healthy fats, hard-boiled eggs, Greek yogurt, unsweetened, nuts, roasted vegetables, soups, and whole grain options. Having ready options removes the temptation to reach for quick sugary snacks. 6. Prioritize protein and healthy fats. Protein and fats slow digestion, blunt insulin spikes, and keep you satisfied. Start meals with protein, chicken, fish, tofu, legumes, or ensure snacks combine protein and fat to resist sugary cravings. This stabilizes blood sugar and reduces the urge to grab something sweet 2 hours after a meal. 7. Get better sleep. Poor sleep increases appetite for sugary, high-carb foods and raises inflammatory markers. Aim for 7 or more hours most nights. Simple sleep hygiene, consistent bedtimes, reducing screens before bed, and making your bedroom dark and cool supports both appetite control and metabolic rhythm. 8. Stay hydrated. Thirst is often mistaken for hunger. Drinking water regularly keeps your energy steady and helps manage cravings. Some people find sparkling water or herbal teas helpful between meals. 9. Move regularly. You don't need marathon workouts. Regular movement, walking, short cardio sessions, resistance work helps blunt cravings, improves insulin sensitivity, and supports mood. Exercise also helps your body use glucose more efficiently, which reduces the biochemical drag of occasional treats. 10. Find support and set realistic expectations. Join a community, buddy up with a friend, or use an online group to stay motivated. Share small wins and setbacks without shame. Expect some slip-ups. The goal is net progress, not perfection. Celebrate non-scale victories like fewer afternoon crashes, less bloating, or clearer skin. Those 10 steps are practical and, when combined, tend to deliver the improvements we discussed. To make this concrete, here are 3 short testimonials from people who tried a 30-day reduction in added sugar, in paraphrased, anonymized form, so you can see how this plays out in everyday life. Harrison told us he cut out his daily sweetened iced coffee and swapped it for black coffee with a little milk. After 2 weeks, he said his morning fog lifted and he stopped needing a second cup by 10 a.m. Alessandra, who had struggled with monthly acne flares, removed packaged sweets and started planning protein-rich breakfasts. By week 3, her breakouts were smaller and less inflamed. Jonathan focused first on beverages, ditched soda and fruit juices, and reported less midsection bloating and more stable energy for work. These are individual stories, not clinical claims, but they capture the kinds of changes many people report in the first month. If you're ready to try this, here's a simple start you can do tomorrow. Swap 1 sugary drink for a glass of water with lemon. That single swap reduces an obvious source of added sugar and gives you an early win to build on. If 30 days feels intimidating, start with 15 days and extend it once you see benefits. A short medical note. If you have diabetes, are taking medications that affect blood sugar, or have a chronic medical condition, check with your clinician before making significant dietary changes. Reducing sugar can alter appetite, energy, and the need for medication adjustments in some contexts, so personalized guidance is important. Also, if you have a history of disordered eating, approach any dietary shift with professional support. Let's close with a few realistic expectations and encouragement. Cutting added sugar is not a magic bullet. It does not guarantee a specific amount of weight loss or prevent any disease with absolute certainty. What it does, supported by research and clinical experience, is reduce key drivers of inflammation and metabolic strain. Over 30 days, many people experience less swelling, lower triglyceride trends, improved liver function markers, clearer skin, steadier energy, and better mood. Those early wins create momentum for longer-term habits that support metabolic health and reduce chronic inflammation over time. If you're in, take the 30-day challenge. Start tomorrow with that drink swap, read 1 label today, plan 2 protein-forward breakfasts for the week, and reach out to a friend to join you. Share your plan in the comments, where you're from, and what your first swap will be, and come back in a few weeks to tell us what changed. If you found this useful, subscribe to the channel to follow the challenge and share this video with someone who needs a gentle, practical reset. Thanks for committing a month to your health. I'll be here with tips, encouragement, and science-framed guidance, 1 practical step at a time. Goodbye to a little extra inflammation. Hello to a steadier, calmer metabolism.